think that's it. So if you put your question in the chat, no problem. Just go ahead and copy and paste it into the Q&A so that we can get to your questions. Let's just start with some basic introductions. Phoebe, I'll have you go first, and then you can hand it over to our current student.
Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe Snyder. I am the Graduate Studies Community and Experience Specialist. So I kind of help bring the community together. I'm also going to be your point person if you come to RISD. So any questions you have about being a graduate student, anything about courses, if I don't know the answer, I hopefully will, but I can point you in the right direction. So that's kind of what I do, and I will hand it over to Ophelia.
Thanks, Phoebe. Hi, I'm Ophelia. I'm a second year in sculpture. I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, I am. But yeah, I'm a second year in the sculpture department.
Thank you so much. Stefan?
Hi, I'm Stefan Sagmiller. I was in photography in 2012.
Okay. And what are you doing now? Where do you live?
Well, I'm currently a full-time fine artist, and I'm living in New York and Connecticut.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. David?
Yeah. Hi, my name is David. I'm a second year student in the painting department.
Awesome. Thank you. So again, guys, this session is a question and answer session about grad study at RISD, certainly more broadly, but we do have some departments represented here. You could hear photo and sculpture and painting, but certainly ask your questions as we can answer those kinds of community-like questions as well. All right, so first question is about architecture, so we're going to pause on that. Just a minute. I'll get to that. I'll type in an answer. Next question is, what are critiques like for RISD MFA students? And anyone who wants to jump in and answer that, go for it. From the alumni side or the current student side?
I can start.
Thank you.
Because I have midterm critique like next week. In the painting department, it's like first and second year students combine, and usually second year students go first, and then like a week or 2 weeks later, it's for first year students. And in that side, we tend to have like 1 or 2 visiting artists and around 5 to 6 of the full-time faculties. And sometimes we also have adjunct if we invite them. And I tend to invite them because they have like some opinions that inform my work, and it's usually helpful to have someone who's like pushing back against like ideas that the faculties are like agreeing with, that in turns like inform like some of the decision that I'm making at my studio. But usually it's relaxed, and it can get like very noisy because of argument, I guess, like opinions and like feedbacks, like back and forth. But usually you get like something really good out of it because we have like someone who's like taking notes and keeping track of like questions and references that are being brought up for the person who's like receiving critique at the time. So yeah.
And I'm curious to hear what it's like in other departments too. Ophelia, if you want to.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I just had my midterm critique. It's interesting because and I learned this recently, it's actually very different than painting, and I think all departments are a bit different, but for sculpture, it's really intimate. It's divided between second years going first, and then the first years going the week after. But it's mainly just our main department head and whoever may be co-teaching the studio class with us, and then all the students. And that's about it. It's pretty self-led. And it's pretty low stakes. It's really what you want to get out of it. And you can come in. Usually the reason we have the second years do it first is just to see the different modes of critique. Even within my cohort, we have different ways of approaching what it is we want to get out of critique. For me, I have kind of questions or like concerns on like how things were working in preparation for thesis. And so that was how I geared my time or leveraged my time in with everyone. I think for our first critique, it's about 45 minutes. And then the second critique that we get at the end is about 30. And then for second years, it's optional to do the second critique, just because it gets a little confusing, especially when you're really into thesis mode, to have so many voices when you have already like concrete decisions. But yeah, it's pretty fluid and relaxed.
And Kobe, am I saying that right?
Yeah. Sorry, I was dealing with some technical issues. What was the question?
Actually, I was just gonna ask you to introduce yourself, and what program you're in, or current student or alumni.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kobe Jackson. I'm a second year Global Arts and Culture student.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, feel free to ask questions to the full group here, but if you have specific questions, you can certainly answer them. This is a good representation of sort of everybody but architecture and design. So Phoebe and I will help give color to those questions throughout. All right. Someone's asking, so they come from a bigger school. Does the RISD campus and student body feel connected or active despite its size? Us being a very small school in comparison for those that don't know. Anyone else have that experience coming from a bigger school, maybe?
I mean, I can go because I graduated from Cornell and it was like massive, like around 15,000 like undergrad students. And coming here, yes, I feel connected, but it's like really small. And at the same time, I feel like even though I have my community, like we all have like stuff that we're doing in our studio. And that's where like most of us like tend to spend like most of our times, which is like, you know, working on like stuff in studio. And sometimes we make plans to like on weekends, like get together and, you know, talk about life, just like having a good time. And if there's like, you know, any other gatherings across the department, we have friends and, you know, friends invite friends and then we like get together like across the department. In that sense, I feel like we're very connected. So yeah. Oh, and also
Yeah, sorry.
no, okay. And also one thing that we started in the painting department, which is like this night crit, which is like very low key and very relaxed. And we invite like people across the department to just like, you know, present one work and then we just like chat about it, just give feedback because I don't know, it's like a way to just like, you know, hang out beyond just like the painting department or the sculpture department or photo. It's just everyone is like, you know, welcome. So yeah.
Yeah, just to jump on that, it feels like there's a lot of activities happening. So there's definitely a lot kind of coming at you, and there's flyers everywhere. So it's easy to find like small niches, which is exciting. I came from Hunter, in New York City, so it is bigger, but it's very sectioned off. And here, like we have like a campus in the sense of like there are spaces for people to spread out. So there's a lot of events where we can meet people. For grad students, there's like grad exchange where I made a lot of my friends around different departments, and that's really beneficial. I highly recommend, you know, partaking in that and like trying to find a community. But also just intimately speaking, like each major is pretty sectioned off, and it's very much you're kind of having a lot of discussions with your major and with your cohort. So it's always good to kind of bridge out. There's different clubs, there's a lot of different events that are kind of sectioned also now for grad students. But I'd say it's almost, for me, coming from a bigger school, I feel like I get more interaction now because it's so small that you end up making like these small circles that you can kind of oscillate between. But yeah.
I would also add that there's quite often, almost every other week, there's receptions for departmental shows opening at the two main galleries. We have Woods Gary Gallery for undergrads and just departmental like triennials and biennials, as well as Solkoffler, which is the grad student gallery. And so that's a great place to mingle and meet people. And there's tons of visiting artist talks and workshops, like way more than you could ever manage to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, small school kind of forces you to be more interactive, I think, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting from you guys, but yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you want, especially coming from a bigger school. It's nice to have that difference in a graduate school education, especially when you're so focused, you know? All right, question about global arts and cultures. This one's for you, Kobe. What sets the liberal arts master's program at RISD apart from standard art history master's programs? That's a great question. We get that one a lot, actually.
Yeah, I would say that it's not so much art history based. It can be if that's your focus, but it begins with a framework of like global history, like the history of capitalism, mainly is the base the structure that it starts out with. And then people branch out to whatever their interests are, and you have to be really self-guided and focused on your goals, because there's so many options. And the other way that is different is that it is connected to like one of the top art schools. So you also have access to all these other resources that if you do have your own individual art practice, you could also take electives and really hone in on like hone in on your practice with top practitioners in the fields. So that's great.
Thank you. This one is for Stefan. So question is, what has been the biggest change in your career before and after RISD?
I mean, I could speak to my own particular experience, but I think it's so unique to each individual. I've seen literally any possible outcome, from absolute art stardom to just moving on to another career entirely. So anything is possible. I have seen a number of success stories. However, I mean, you can continually see RISD students performing at top levels in the art world and in the commercial photography world. But really, anything is possible.
Yeah, I think that the kind of experience you have depends on uniquely where you come from, right? What your not just your educational history, but your work history and sort of your lived experience. Then you add that to what RISD's given you. And I think Kobe, you said it when you're given so much to do, you really have to pick and choose sort of carefully how to choose to spend your time. I mean, you of course are in a 1.5-year program. Most students are in a 2 to 3-year program, so they have a little bit more time to do that. But I still think 2 years goes by so fast that it's sorry. That it's something to think about. All right, let's see what else do we have here. We have a lot of questions, so bear with us, you guys. I'm going to filter through these, and Phoebe, feel free to do the same. And if you see anything really spectacular, flag me down and you can jump in. All right, we kind of talked about this, but do you find yourself interacting with students across majors outside of class environments? I kind of want to dig into that a little bit because we already touched on it. And actually, Phoebe, I'm going to give you this opportunity. Can you talk about grad exchange and sort of what the purpose is of that, or any other kind of programming that you do for the community broadly?
Yeah, so I mean, that is what I do, is I do a lot of the community events for the graduate students. Ophelia mentioned the grad exchange, which is our biggest event for grads, and it's just a chance for all of the graduate communities to gather. People can sign up to give quick 3-minute presentations, and the presentations can be on anything. It's kind of what they're doing, if they're looking to collaborate, if someone's looking to like use the photo studio and they don't have those skills. It's just a way to connect with people who you normally wouldn't connect with in your cohort. And it's a super casual environment. We get good food and drinks and stuff, so it's a good time. And then there are also opportunities to meet people over the summer too. We do some summer sessions where you just talk to alumni, but you're all kind of in this virtual space together over the summer. So even though you might not talk one-on-one, you still get to see people's names throughout the summer and then have someone to connect with when you actually get to campus. We also do some welcome events at the beginning. So there's a beach picnic that we do. What else do we do? We do a little welcome reception for everyone. And then throughout the year, I also try to plan events with campus partners to kind of get people connected in other ways. So lots of info sessions, which sounds kind of like boring, but they are more informal and they're just chances to have larger discussions. So there are things happening with like the library that you're able to attend and it's open to all grads and it's just as a time to get together, get to know each other, exchange all information and ideas.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Moving right along. Okay, so I answered that one. Oh, this is a good question. Thank you, Michaela. So I think that's how you say your name. What surprised you most about your experience here at RISD? And Stefan, feel free to go back to the year that you were there too.
All right, I'll jump in on that one. What surprised me most? I think the breadth of intellectual knowledge that you have contact and experience with. You know, Brown University is very nearby the RISD campus, and it's surprisingly open to people that are interested in pursuing specific ideas further. I was anything from like super advanced cognitive science to just, I mean, unlimited. Wherever your artistic discipline is headed, like you can have access to the kind of tools to understand it in the most full way possible. Art schools don't always have the kind of ammunition that you might need to tackle an issue. So I think that's a really unique opportunity. And it's really only limited by your ability to stay up late because you're packing on a lot of extra hours if you're headed over there. But you'll definitely benefit from doing that.
I guess I could contribute to that question. What surprised me most is how I kind of forgot who I was before school. Like, I think I've grown so much that it's hard to remember like how limited my ideas were before this and how much I've learned. How much there is to learn is also shocking. And also I would say like before starting school, the art world was kind of like a mystery, a puzzle to me. And now I feel like I have a much better understanding of how it operates. So yeah.
I can contribute to that. Like earlier today, I had a class and we're talking about like what life like is like after RISD, like what kind of life like are we preparing ourselves like to get into. And it was not like the typical class where we're like discussing art or we're like receiving critique. It was like this intimate moment where like the professor was like sharing like his experience like in the art world like with us. And like I guess like getting to know like the different like mechanisms that comes into play. It's not just like staying in your studio and like making art. It's like connecting like to other people and like I guess like try to find your community, how to like write a contract, how to reach out to gallery spaces, how to like make the distinction between like the places that you would want to work with like a commercial gallery versus like a nonprofit or artist run spaces. And those are like not conversation that we usually have. And me personally coming from like a big university, it was not like the kind of conversation that I had with my professor. And now, like, I don't know, I just feel like it's like this moment that I needed. I feel like I should have known, but I didn't. And now, like, I don't know, I was like fortunate to have someone like to share their experience with us, with me specifically, because like next semester I'm graduating and I have like, I guess, like some sort of anchor, like as I'm getting ready to enter like the art world, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, that's huge, David. And I just wanna nobody knows what our world is like. I feel like it's just a huge mystery, and really learning from your faculty members and your peers who may have more experience, it just it helps you understand and gravitate to what maybe you want and don't want, and I think that that's really cool too. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay, well, we got a lot of questions, so I'm just gonna keep going. Let's see. So, all right, so this is going to be a good question because it just is going to highlight how different the application process is for each individual department. These departments are very small, painting admitting 10 students, sculpture admitting maybe 8 to 9 students into their cohort to start in one enrollment term, which is the fall start term. I kind of want to focus on you guys. This is a call out to David, though, wanting to know what is the application process like for painting specifically? And I say that just with the caveat that every single department is different. And so David's experience might not be the same as yours, even though you're applying to the same program.
Yeah, like and like I knew that I wanted to go to grad school because like that only did I want to like further like explore my interest in painting, but I wanted to expand my practice, whether it was like painting or, and at the time I was like doing multiple things. I was like doing sculpture, painting, drawing. I was like doing, yeah. And I wanted to like focus specifically on painting, but also expand like the kind of discourse that I was like exploring in my work. And yeah, and at the time it was like in junior year, I like put my portfolio together, my statement, and I started like asking for letters of recommendation because I was like, as soon as I graduate, I'm going to, start applying for art school. So the portfolio was like the biggest part of it. So I had like 5 of my professors to look over it to make sure that the work that I had was strong enough and I was like ready like for grad school. So in the process of like reviewing my portfolio, they were like also sharing like what their experience was for grad school and what I should expect, because some things have changed, but also some things remain the same. And in that sense, they were like, okay, they kind of prepare me psychologically what is like how to navigate the space and what to expect and critique, which was like really fun because I was looking scared, but I got here and it was like way more chill than what they made it sounds like, which was interesting. And also like reviewing my like statement to make sure that I guess like I tweaked like all the grammatical errors and mistakes that could happen to make like and have people review it to make sure that I have like my statement like the way that I intended. So yeah, it was like those things, but honestly, it was like really exhausting because I was like applying for multiple schools. But besides that, I feel like once you get past that and you submit your application, it's just like waiting for, decisions. And that's it. Yeah, that has been my experience.
Yeah, I think that you touched on two things that I just want to say over again. One of them is to use the resources that you have right now to review your statement of purpose. There's no reason anybody should be submitting something with grammatical errors or something like that. It's just a simple thing. Family member even, review this, one pager for me. Let me know what you think. Do I need to reword? I think that was a really smart piece of advice, and glad to hear that you did that. And then the other one is that it might be competitive in the application process, but understanding that every single school and what they're looking for and maybe a portfolio or their application requirements might differ a little bit. So if you are applying for more than one school, make sure to organize that really well so you understand what portfolio you're submitting to what school. Come to a portfolio day. We have one this Friday. Everything is online. We have one more in New York City. I'll be there in a couple of weekends. And yeah, so I just wanted to kind of highlight those 2 points that you made, David. So I appreciate that. Anybody else want to have a other kind of experience applying? I mean, Kobe, I know a portfolio isn't part of the application requirement for GAC. So what was that application process for you like in preparing maybe a writing sample or fine tuning something?
Yeah, I guess definitely a big part of it was my connections with other professors for having the references listed and having them proofread my statement as well. So yeah, there's 2 statements, I believe, a writing sample and then a statement. It's because writing is like the main part of the program. You're expected to write a 40 to 60 page thesis by the end, like roughly minimum 20,000 words. So yeah, making sure that writing sample is looking pretty good is key. And yeah, finding who you have out there, like who you have to support your process in the academic world.
That's great. Thank you so much. Phoebe, are you seeing any amazing questions out there? I'm just typing an answer here.
I mean, there are a few good ones.
Some are really specific to.
I would say some are really
Yeah.
specific.
We're going to talk more broadly. We're going to take our question and we're going to kind of take it apart and answer it more broadly because that's what's going to help really the majority of folks. So yeah,
I mean, there have been a lot of questions about what it's like living in Providence, especially as a grad student. Do you live on campus? Do you live in an apartment, far, close? So I think that would be a good one to touch on. People always have questions about housing.
Well,
all
also
right,
there
let's
was,
do that. Yeah.
oh, sorry. There was also this question: are there like opportunities for collaboration with MFA students and MA students? And one of the like examples is me and Kobe. We actually worked on like this like show together. We curated for like the grad students, and Ophelia also submitted a piece, which was amazing. So like all of
Oh,
us like,
yep.
somehow, yeah, we were like we worked somehow on like this amazing exhibition that closed like a couple of days ago. So yeah, you will have like opportunities like that.
Anybody else want to talk about collaboration between MFA and MA programs or yeah, Kobe?
Oh, collaboration. Yeah, it's kind of up to you. Right now I'm collaborating with a painting student. We meet like every couple of weeks and paint together. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, it's kind of up to you to like make those connections and get out there, put yourself out there to meet people because there's so many like ways to do it. There's like social events, but yeah, it's up to you to start those conversations and like curation is a really good way to do it for sure. But there's lots of ways to do it.
Yeah. Let's flip over to the other piece of that question or the first question that Phoebe was asking about, because we do get that question a lot in the admissions office too. And that's, what is it like to live in Providence? Anybody who has maybe like a different experience of coming to Providence and seeing what that's all about, because we are different than our neighboring cities in really profound ways. And then living on campus or off campus. Ophelia, looks like you're ready to go.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So I moved from New York. I didn't expect the culture shock that I got. I wasn't expecting any culture shock, and I got culture shock. So like it was very much interesting, especially like I got my apartment sight unseen. So it was a lot of like Zoom watching, and I know that's a pretty common experience. Even though it was close, I had no way to get to Rhode Island. I applied straight. I was doing applications while I was in undergrad, so it was difficult to go to see the locations. So doing the Zoom location, I found out about the RISD off-campus like Facebook group that students have made after I found my place, and I kind of wish I knew about it beforehand. But yeah, I think there are a lot of like different areas to live in because that are pretty walkable to like the Fletcher studios, which is like where most people are. Most of the times, like I'm in Federal Hill, and that's not, I would say, not the most common. A lot of people are closer towards Brown University, but that's also like an option that I found was cheaper for me and is still really walkable. But yeah, I would definitely look at the Facebook groups. And you know, another thing I didn't really take into consideration is that like it is a college town. So we have Johnson Wales University. I believe there's like Providence College, Providence Community College, and Brown University, of course, and maybe one more. But then
Right.
outside of that, there's like a whole, like Rhode Island's like a state. So it's like also people from Rhode Island. So over in Federal Hill, like I realized like I was one of the only students. So it was interesting, like, I'm coming into a whole like community that's very different from what I'm used to. And I didn't expect it even being on the East Coast. So I think that's something to take into consideration and just like look around at like what the options are.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was an apartment I was looking at that was like really, really cheap, and it was over by the Capitol. And then I found out that it was surrounded by Providence College frats and sororities. So I was like, that's probably not a good idea. Be really loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, like next door and across the street. Um, yes, but the city's only like 3 miles wide, and there's RISD rides, which will transport you like in the immediate vicinity after 5 p.m. every day. And then there's also Jump Off Campus, which is a website where you can look at apartments. I think it's connected to RISD.
Yeah, so we have a couple different ways to support students. So just the link to our residence life page is a good jumping off point for learning like where to live, maybe not where not to live. But there's also the Facebook group, which is super helpful there. And then we also are part of the listserv for Brown students and their housing as well. So you can sort of see what's available at Brown University because we're closer to Brown than any other university. But just to point out what Ophelia said, we have 8 major colleges in this area. So housing is not necessarily an issue for us. It's just how close or far away do you want to be from campus walking wise? I will also just say that the majority of students do live off campus and that are graduate students, but it doesn't mean you cannot live on campus. Anyone else want to talk about their experience? Stefan, maybe?
Yeah, I lived a bit further out, and I enjoy biking, so I found it a very bikeable city,
Yeah.
and you can get around pretty quickly because it's just not that big, which is nice. But there's definitely everything available. There's super swanky lofts like right down by Fletcher, that were kind of like shockingly affordable for how nice they were coming from New York City or Brooklyn. And then there's lots of friends of mine were in like bigger houses with lots of shared spaces. So like that's another option to find something nice but like more affordable.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about. I think for students is they don't really know how much it costs to live in Rhode Island, and if you're coming from anywhere like Boston or New York, it's gonna be a little bit different. Not just the culture shock, but the price of things are definitely different here. They're very much equal to our economy, which is much smaller than those neighboring cities. And we're just much smaller on a scale. Let's switch the conversation a little bit. There are a lot of questions about financial aid. I just want to let you guys know we have a ton more sessions like this, but they're just with admissions, and we can talk more about financial aid. So if you have financial aid questions, email us at admissions@risd.edu, and we'll be able to get you guys into our session, which is actually next Thursday at, I believe, 1 o'clock. I'll have to check. I'll put the link online or just in the chat here. We're going to be there with the director of student financial services, and they're going to be able to answer tons of questions that you guys have. So you should just attend that session or email us at admissions and we'll get you signed up. Phoebe, what are you seeing out there? Oh, actually, this is a really good question. I'm just going to jump in. What is the access to labs and studios like? And you did touch on that a little bit, Phoebe, but maybe someone else can give me a for instance of what access you have or have needed and how you went about getting it. Because that's a common question.
I'll go ahead and jump in there. So Fletcher's open, I believe, till 2 a.m. and it opens at like 7, if I'm not mistaken. It might be a little earlier. But it's open pretty late, to be honest. And I mean, there's no air conditioning, but there's heating. So like in the summers it gets a little, you might want to like get an AC, but in the winters it's like not a problem or concern. It's open like during the holidays. I spend like all my time here, so it hasn't been an issue. Um and then some of like the labs are a little more finicky, like if you're going to like the microscopy lab, which is in the nature center, which is amazing by the way. That is obviously has like different time slots, and same thing with like the library, or if you want to go to like the special collections section, which is basically just like archival things that are held within like RISD's library system. Like that stuff might be like appointment based, but your main studio, if you don't need something like, I'm assuming photo is different, but your main studio is pretty accessible.
Yeah, Fletcher is like open actually, I think at 6, as soon as 6, and you can stay up until like I guess like 2, 3 a.m. And that's also when like the last like RISD ride is like around 3:15. And yeah, I mean, like one thing that we tend to do in the painting department, if we want to have access to like other like labs or like other studios, to have friends. Because for example, in the printmaking department, like their studios are like, even though it's like smaller, like they tend to work a lot. So if you have a friend, you might want to like, ask them like to take you, like if it's like busy, because they are like around like when you're working. But if not, you can use like open studios, or like hours that when it's not busy or when they're not working, like to use it, and they're like very friendly in that sense. And some of them might even like teach you like a couple of things as you work along. So, but like other like I guess studios like might be like more difficult. But the good thing that I keep telling people is like to have friends like in other department if you want to use those facilities.
Yeah, I didn't take a printing class here, but I had a friend in the print department and he taught me how to make monotypes. So the head of the department said I could have lab access if I just pay the lab fee, which was $100 per semester, and I could go and use like the inks and the all the equipment for a whole semester as much as I wanted. And there's monitors, so it has to be during a time when there's a monitor there. But also we have our department has a grad lounge, which is what I'm in right now, and that's open till 10 p.m. And I'm also taking a 3D printing class in sculpture this semester, and so we have access to 3D printers and 3D scanners. I'm not sure what time the Metcalf building closes, but I think it's open pretty late as well.
Yeah, every department, sort of everything that they host, including, you know, offices or places like co-works, they have their own hours, and so you can kind of find your way around the RISD website. If you go to the programs and academics, you can click on facilities. I'll tell you what's in their facility in terms of shops and maker spaces, and research and things like that. All right, I'm gonna go back to you, Phoebe, because I asked you this before and then I cut you off. What questions are you seeing out there? Because I'm not diving through everything. I'm still in the first 15 to 20 questions here.
I mean, I like this question just because I think it's really helpful for folks to hear is someone is saying, I'm curious how you feel your work has evolved so far by being at RISD. So if you want to talk about kind of where you started when you were applying to kind of where you're at now, I think that'd be really great for everyone to hear.
And from you too, Stefan. We want to hear your piece of the story.
Okay, I'll start. If you guys aren't going to jump in. I first applied to Yale University because it's largely referred to as the best photography school in the country. And I was working in the commercial world at the time, and I didn't get in. It was a really crushing experience. I only applied to one school, but my work was very naive. And I was a very dedicated student, and I explored every aspect of the discipline of making art, like 2 years doing philosophy, you know, getting into art history. I was almost over-prepared for the next time applying, so I applied for 6 schools the second time, because I didn't want to go through that experience again. And I got into all 6 on the next one. And I think largely because I had assembled a group of individuals who were respected in the art world and kind of began that process of what I usually refer to as stamping out naivete. Just not being blindsided by something that you're not aware of, either with yourself or with the external world. And I think that just continues while you're in the program, constantly realigning yourself and realigning yourself with the art world and realigning yourself with other disciplines, specifically from photography, because photography isolates itself, even in the art world. It kind of has its own little tribe that operates on its own rules. And there's, you know, kind of a broader thing going on. So the RISD exposes you to that like pretty immediately because you have a lot of experience relating to other disciplines like painting and sculpture, which can be very eye-opening for people from other disciplines because they're often isolated. So yeah, I mean, it's just constantly eye-opening, and it doesn't stop after you leave the school. I mean, it's just. At this point, I think I've reached the end. Like I'm surprised about what occurs and what happens with my own work, but not with the art world or the art market any longer.
I'll jump in. For me, being now in second year and like looking at my work, it's gotten bigger. I have like the studios are like, I guess coming from New York City, the studios are a lot bigger. So I've had the ability to expand my work in terms of like actual size. So that's been really exciting. I've seen that shift a lot. I've also felt that because Rhode Island is more sectioned off, at least from where I'm coming from, I felt more comfortable exploring because I wasn't too scared of like a couple, like basically about outside influence. At my old school at Hunter, we would have these open studios. There were these huge events, like a lot, like over 200 people would come and like see work and stuff. And it gets really nerve-wracking, especially when like the art world is like looking at you and like opportunities are happening and stuff. So I think it's given me like a space and like room to breathe and explore in ways that I'm happy about and was expecting or wanting, at least getting out of like a major like area of art like New York and then coming here and then knowing I'll be going back to move back home and like having that space, I think is like a good is basically like a good landing pad for exploring new ideas, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree because I have a big studio. So like exploring like different interests that I have, I feel like the space allowed me like to do so because even though I came from a big university, the space that we had in the art department was quite small. So I feel like in that sense, that kind of limit like the kind of work that I could have been doing, you know, and like coming here and this like allowed me to do that. But there's also what Ophelia said, which is like, how like the space like allow me to like just focus on like my interest. And I feel like I couldn't do that either because even though I had like multiple interests, I was still working at a scale where it could have been more interesting. And like when I came here, I gave myself the liberty to let my work breathe. And that in turns like a new layer, like from something that could be like the size of the phone with like this big space that you have where like what if like expanded like in that sense, like how different, would the work like be received? And I feel like that has like influence what is like my approach to like the physical work, but also like the way that I'm thinking about my work in that sense too. So yeah.
Guess I would say that my writing has improved a lot. Making writing that makes sense and is convincing as well as has structure that that supports the type of argument and how to introduce ideas. So yeah, a huge improvement in my writing.
Thank you guys for that. I want to back up a little bit to the application process because we know everybody here who's attending is going to be submitting their application. It's due January 6th. So they're hungry for some portfolio information. What do you guys think made your portfolio stand out, and like what did you focus on most when you were putting together your portfolio for RISD?
I can jump in. I was doing like all kinds of work. I was doing sculpture, I was doing drawing, I was painting, I was doing video at the time because I thought it was interesting, like the way that, like one idea can translate into like different like media. And I was like very much interested in that. And I'm still very much interested in it. And I don't know, I thought I was like all over the place, but the thing is that also translate uh to whoever is reading your application is the fact that you have interest in like those many like fields. And and I thought also it translated into like, okay, it's like a variety of work and how strong others work, even though you are like exploring different ideas, like how do they translate into like the materiality of like what you're doing, right? So I had sculpture, I had drawing, and I had like painting. But I try to, I guess, like select like the strongest work that like I could gather. But I had like 20 because you have to size it down. And that's why like having someone like review your portfolio is important because there's like something that you might be attached to. but that might be one of the strongest one. But having like that outsider perspective is gonna, I guess, like help you size down like to what, I guess, like the way that people are seeing your work is like, okay, this is like the direction that the work is taking, and they have like a more objective like view of like, you know, what your practice at the time like it looks like. So yeah, and that's how I did it. I started with like what I feel like was like the like 20 strongest one, and then have like a like, and also write about like, okay, this is why, this is what this body of work is like trying to do. This is what I'm trying to do with it. Those are like the ideas that I'm exploring. So they have like a better sense of like, okay, I see why you decided to include this in your portfolio, right? So I try to like articulate those ideas and then have them reviewed, and like when, but the thing is, at the end of the day, like the final decision is yours. It's like you, like whatever you're more comfortable to submit is like, that decision is up to you. So yeah.
I'd say for me, applying to sculpture, I think the biggest problem is like at the end of the day, you're submitting a flat image of a three-dimensional object. And so that became where I spent most of my time, like trying out different forms of documentation, like experimenting with like, oh, like, do I want to have something that kind of gives someone an inside view of like the materiality or the size, and like sometimes you have to make those decisions. I crochet all of my sculptures, so sometimes I'd have to be like, oh, I really want to get this detail, but it's like if it's too big and you can't capture that detail from like getting further away, like that's kind of the evaluation cost you make, like what ends up summarizing your practice best. And I think also there's not a need to have, like, you don't have to have like a cohesive language per se, but like having your voice show throughout all of it is important. A huge thing I got, especially applying from undergrad, was like, you don't want anything to look like you're just handing in assignments. Like, you wanted to have your personal touch. And I think that's like a really important thing. Like, not like, even if something is like in technicality really great but has no aspects of you, it may not be like the strongest thing to include. So, you know, staying true to like what your voice is, even if there isn't some sort of cohesive language yet.
I review a lot of portfolios and have for many years. And
Yes, you do.
I think that the I think that the transition from undergrad to graduate is probably one of the most important transitions that an artist will ever make. And the consistency, what I see happen is that an undergrad might perceive their portfolio as being a demonstration of a set of skills, which is kind of what everything in your schooling has been up to that point. And an MFA portfolio is just fundamentally different. It's not a demonstration of a bunch of skills. It's much different. It's completely self-guided, and the art world was really unconcerned with your abilities, whether they be technical or intellectual or otherwise. So I always tell people the best way to frame your application to any school is to imagine, I mean, first be able to identify probably the 10 most important galleries that you're aware of. And then just imagine one of them has actually accepted you for a solo show there at that gallery. And imagine what kind of curators and collectors and or if you're interested in teaching, what schools might be looking at your teaching application, and then decide, you know, based on that exhibition, what are the 20 strongest works that I have that are cohesive, that would be a compelling and interesting exhibition. It's really, it's not anything more than that. It's actually quite simple. And if you think it would be a compelling exhibition, it'll probably get you in.
Yeah, I mean, those are all really great points. David, I want to go back to something that you said that was really great. And that's, you know, to get a portfolio review, because really there isn't any prescription that we're gonna tell you to get into RISD. So back to what Stefan said, you know, I think putting your best work forward is the greatest thing, but you might not know it's your best work. Right? David, to your point, you know, you sometimes you are subjective. And I mean, not to say we are the pinnacle of objective portfolio reviews, but it is going to be as long as you get a review from multiple schools, and you can do that, whether it be an online portfolio day or an in-person portfolio day. I'm going to be in New York in a couple of weeks. If you want to stop by and get some work reviewed, those are all helpful pieces. But we might say, you know, you don't need 20 images. Actually, the 12 that these 12 are actually more compelling, and you're confusing me by showing me up to 20. So sometimes less is more also. And different departments do have some specific requirements, just to wrap it up here, which you can find on our website. If you just go to graduate admissions, you can see all those specific portfolio requirements, which are generally just sort of guiding you in a direction that is both open-ended. And then for everybody else, it's open-ended on purpose, because we just want to see what you're authentically doing. So really thinking about that. What would that one solo show look like? Stephanie put it really well. I'm doing a lot of portfolio reviews, but yeah, I mean, that's it for time. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time to keep going into all these things. Any last things for advice that you guys have? All right, well, this is in the end. We have tons more events. Portfolio Day this Friday. There's about, I want to say 15 spaces left. You could still get yours, and then there'll be another space in November, and then December as well. I also just want to promote that we're going to be having a open house, both online and in person, in November. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you the opportunity to look at not just one program potentially, but multiple programs online. And then when you come here in person, you have to choose one department to go see the studios. So you would be led through maybe Ophelia's studio or David's studio, and show the sort of access that you have to certain things within CIT or Fletcher or beyond. And the same thing, you know, with Kobe's department. So you can go see certain departments in our physical spaces on November 22nd. I'm going to give you guys a link to sign up for any of our open house events in just a minute. And yeah, and you know, like I said, the conversation doesn't end here. Email us at admissions@risd.edu if you didn't get your questions answered. And I'm going to thank all of our panelists for taking an hour to hang out with us tonight and answer some questions. We so appreciate that. Yeah, and thanks everybody so much for coming. I'm gonna put that link in here just now.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We
Thank you
appreciate
for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good night.
you so much. Have a good night. I'm still putting
Bye.
the link here. One sec. I'll give it to you guys. All right, hang out for a second. There's our open house link. You can get online sessions and in-person sessions. So we hope to just see you there. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.